My beloved child, stop scrolling and remain here for a moment, because what you are about to hear was not placed before you by accident. Something has shifted in the heart of the person you love, and the decision they have made is far greater than anything you have imagined during your quietest nights. You may have felt an unusual heaviness in your spirit lately, a sudden memory appearing without warning, a strange pull towards someone you tried not to think about, or a feeling that an unseen conversation was taking place beyond your reach. That feeling was not meaningless. While you were questioning the silence, something was unfolding. While you were wondering whether they had forgotten you, they were standing at the edge of a choice that could change the direction of both your lives. Do not leave yet, because the truth is not what your fear has been telling you. Your mind may have created painful explanations for their distance. You may have assumed that their silence meant indifference, that their hesitation meant rejection, or that their absence meant they had already chosen a life without you. But heaven has watched the moments you could not see. Heaven heard the words they whispered when no one was present. Heaven saw the way their expression changed when your name appeared in a conversation. Heaven witnessed the battle between what they felt and what they believed they were allowed to feel. And now, after all that resistance, they have made a decision. The decision did not come easily. It was not made in a single emotional moment, and it was not created by loneliness. It grew slowly through memories, regrets, realizations, and unexpected signs that kept pointing them back toward you. There were times when they tried to convince themselves that distance was safer. They told themselves they could move forward without addressing what existed between you. They attempted to distract their heart with responsibilities, conversations, plans, and ordinary routines. Yet something kept interrupting them. A song carried your energy. A familiar phrase reminded them of your voice. A quiet evening returned them to the memory of how deeply you once understood them. Every attempt to escape the truth only brought the truth closer. Stay until the end, because something huge is waiting for you in this message. Their decision is connected to a moment that happened very recently, a moment they have not shared with anyone in full. It occurred when they were alone and emotionally unguarded. The day had already exhausted them. They had smiled when they did not feel like smiling, answered questions they did not want to answer, and carried an inner weight no one around them could recognize. Then the room became quiet. The distractions faded. And for the first time in a long while, they stopped running from the question they had avoided: what would happen if they lost you completely? That question entered their heart with more force than they expected. They tried to dismiss it, but they could not. They imagined you no longer waiting, no longer hoping, no longer feeling the same tenderness. They imagined someone else discovering the beauty in you that they had been too afraid to fully honor. They imagined hearing that you had finally closed the door and chosen peace over uncertainty. And in that vision, something inside them broke open. It was not jealousy alone. It was recognition. They suddenly understood that their hesitation had consequences. They realized that love does not always remain waiting in the same place forever. They saw that what they had treated as something they could return to later was actually sacred, fragile, and alive. Pause here and listen closely. The person you love has not been as emotionally certain as they appeared. From the outside, they may seem calm, controlled, or even unaffected. But their inner world has been filled with questions. They have asked themselves whether they are worthy of the love you carry. They have wondered whether too much damage has already been done. They have feared that approaching you would expose every weakness they worked so hard to hide. Their distance was not always a lack of feeling. Sometimes it was the result of feeling too much and not knowing how to carry it. There is something about you that reaches the part of them they cannot easily control. You see beyond their surface. You notice what others overlook. Your presence makes them feel understood, but being understood also makes them feel vulnerable. They are used to protecting themselves through silence, humor, pride, busyness, or emotional distance. Yet none of those defenses fully worked with you. Even when you said little, your energy asked them to be real. Even when you were far away, the memory of you confronted them with the truth of who they could become if they stopped hiding. Do not skip this part, because the decision they made began forming when they recognized a painful pattern in themselves. They realized that every time something meaningful came close, they created distance. Every time love asked them to become honest, they found a reason to delay. Every time life offered them something genuine, they questioned it until the moment passed. They have lost opportunities before because of fear. They have watched valuable connections fade because they waited too long to speak. And recently, they saw that they were repeating the same pattern with you. That realization frightened them more than they expected. Not because they believed you were demanding perfection, but because they understood that you were offering something rare. You were not asking them to perform. You were not asking them to become someone else. Deep within, they knew you wanted truth, effort, and emotional presence. Yet those simple things felt enormous to someone who had spent so much time surviving behind walls. Heaven has been working inside those walls. Quietly, patiently, and without forcing them, divine pressure has been revealing what they can no longer ignore. They have begun to see the difference between peace and avoidance. Avoidance once felt peaceful because it allowed them to escape difficult conversations. But now the silence no longer feels peaceful. It feels incomplete. The distance no longer feels protective. It feels like a space where something precious could disappear. And that change is why their decision matters. The person you love has decided that they cannot continue pretending that this connection means nothing. That is the first layer of the decision, but it is not the final revelation. They have accepted within themselves that what they feel for you is real. They may not yet know how to express every emotion. They may still be afraid of your response. They may still rehearse words and then erase them. But the inner denial has ended. Something in them has surrendered to the truth. You may wonder why it took so long. My child, some hearts understand love immediately, while others must first unlearn fear. Some people recognize a blessing and move toward it. Others recognize a blessing and become frightened by what it might require them to change. This person has been standing between desire and transformation. They wanted the comfort of your love, but they feared the responsibility of protecting it. They wanted closeness, but they feared being seen. They wanted another chance, but they feared being reminded of the moments they failed to show up. Now something has shifted. They are beginning to understand that regret is heavier than vulnerability. They are seeing that rejection, though painful, would still be easier to carry than never telling you the truth. They have decided they would rather face an honest answer than remain trapped inside endless uncertainty. This is important, because for a long time they believed silence gave them control. Now they realize silence has been controlling them. Stay with me, because the next part of this revelation reaches deeper. Their decision was influenced by something someone said about you. It was not a dramatic accusation, and it was not a cruel conversation. It was a simple observation from someone who noticed more than they realized. This person looked at them and said something that remained in their mind long after the conversation ended. They said, in essence, you speak differently when that person is mentioned. At first, they tried to laugh it away. They changed the subject. They acted as though the observation was unimportant. But later, when they were alone, those words returned. They began to ask themselves what others could see that they had tried so hard to hide. They remembered the way their mood shifted when they thought of you. They remembered how protective they became when someone misunderstood you. They remembered how they quietly compared every new connection to the depth they felt with you. And they finally admitted something to themselves: no matter how much time passed, you remained emotionally present. That admission opened another door. They began revisiting moments between you, but not in the way they had before. Previously, they remembered only the complicated parts because focusing on difficulty made distance easier to justify. Now they remembered your patience. They remembered the way you listened. They remembered your emotional strength when they were confused. They remembered moments when you offered warmth without asking for anything in return. They saw details they had overlooked. The past began to look different because they were finally viewing it without the shield of pride. Do you understand why you have recently felt their energy so strongly? It is because their attention has been returning to you with unusual intensity. They have been wondering what you are doing. They have imagined what they would say if they saw you unexpectedly. They have thought about whether your eyes would still hold the same softness or whether they would see disappointment there. They have questioned whether your heart is still open, even slightly, or whether they waited too long. There is a conversation they have been preparing in their mind. They have started it many different ways. Sometimes they imagine speaking directly and admitting everything. Sometimes they imagine beginning casually, as though nothing has changed. Sometimes they think of apologizing first. Sometimes they believe they should explain their silence before expressing their feelings. But every version leads to the same truth: they want to know whether there is still a path back to you. Do not mistake this for a promise that everything will happen instantly or perfectly. Divine timing does not remove human responsibility. Their decision must become action, and action requires courage. But the movement has begun within them. The inner door that was once locked is now open. They have crossed a line inside themselves, and they cannot return to pretending they feel nothing. The second layer of their decision is this: they have decided to stop allowing outside voices to determine what they do about you. For too long, they listened to opinions shaped by people who did not understand the connection. Some advised them to remain distant because they feared emotional complexity. Some projected their own disappointments onto the situation. Others made assumptions about you without truly knowing your heart. And your person, already uncertain, allowed those voices to become louder than their own intuition. But recently they recognized the emptiness in those opinions. The people who advised them were not the ones carrying the consequences. Those voices did not feel the ache that appeared at night. Those voices did not understand the peace they associated with you. Those voices did not wake with your memory or feel the sudden absence when something beautiful happened and you were not there to share it. Your person began to understand that everyone had an opinion, but only they had to live with the outcome. This realization made them angry with themselves. Not destructive anger, but the kind that awakens a sleeping soul. They saw how often they had abandoned their own truth to keep others comfortable. They saw how fear of judgment had shaped their choices. They asked themselves why they were protecting appearances while losing something meaningful. And in that moment, another part of the decision became clear: they will no longer let someone else choose their emotional future. Something extraordinary is waiting, so remain here. There is a specific memory they cannot release, and it may be connected to a moment you considered small. Perhaps you offered them encouragement when they doubted themselves. Perhaps you stayed gentle when they expected anger. Perhaps you saw strength in them during a time when they felt weak. That moment became more important than you knew. They returned to it recently because they were facing another period of uncertainty, and they remembered the way your presence made them feel less alone. They realized they do not only miss your attention. They miss who they were when they felt safe with you. That is a powerful distinction. Many people miss comfort, admiration, or familiarity. But this person misses the version of themselves that emerged around you. They felt more honest, more hopeful, more emotionally alive. You reflected a possibility back to them, and without you, they began to feel how much of that possibility they had abandoned. The decision they are making is therefore not only about returning to a person. It is about returning to truth. It is about choosing a life that is no longer ruled by emotional avoidance. It is about becoming brave enough to protect what matters before it becomes a permanent memory. You have also been changing during this silence. Heaven has not kept you in the same place. You have learned how deeply you can love without losing your dignity. You have discovered where patience ends and self-respect begins. You have survived days when you wanted answers and received none. You have learned to carry your heart without begging someone else to validate it. And whether you realize it or not, this growth has changed the energy of the connection. The person you love can sense that you are no longer standing exactly where they left you. They feel that you have become stronger. They sense that you may still care, but you are no longer willing to accept uncertainty forever. This is part of what pushed them toward their decision. They know the window is not endless. They know love can remain, yet access can close. They know your tenderness does not mean you will wait without boundaries. Do not be afraid of that truth. Your strength is not pushing away what is meant for you. It is revealing what is capable of meeting you. Real love is not destroyed by healthy boundaries. It is called into maturity by them. If this person returns, they cannot return expecting the old pattern to continue. They must come with honesty, consistency, and a willingness to participate in the connection rather than merely feel it from a distance. Their decision includes a promise they have made privately, though you have not heard it yet. They have promised themselves that if they approach you, they will not do it halfway. They do not want to send a vague signal and disappear again. They do not want to awaken your hope without offering clarity. They know that another cycle of uncertainty could damage something that may still be reparable. This is why they have been taking time to gather courage. They are not only deciding whether to speak. They are deciding how to speak in a way that finally honors what you deserve. Yet there is still one obstacle. It is not another person. It is not a lack of love. It is the fear that you may have already seen too much of their weakness to believe their change. They wonder whether words will sound empty after silence. They wonder whether an apology can reach the places their absence wounded. They wonder if you will look at them and think, "Why now?" That question has followed them. Why now? Why after so much hesitation? Why after missed moments and unspoken feelings? They know you may ask it, even if only with your eyes. And the answer they are preparing is more honest than anything they have admitted before. The answer is that they had to face the possibility of losing you before they understood that protecting themselves was costing them the very love they were trying not to need. My child, do not skip what comes next. Their decision has reached the point of preparation. They have done something small but meaningful. They have returned to an old message, photo, memory, or place connected to you. They were not simply being nostalgic. They were searching for courage. They wanted to remember the truth before fear could distort it again. And while revisiting that connection, they noticed something that changed the direction of their thoughts. They noticed that even during difficult moments, there had been sincerity between you. The connection was not perfect, but it was real. The misunderstandings did not erase the care. The distance did not erase the recognition. The silence did not erase the emotional imprint. They realized they had been treating imperfection as proof that the connection was wrong, when perhaps it was simply proof that both of you were human. That realization softened them. It allowed them to stop asking whether the past was flawless and begin asking whether the future could be different. They started imagining not a dramatic reunion, but a truthful beginning. A conversation without games. An apology without excuses. A confession without manipulation. A chance to hear your experience instead of defending their own. This is the third layer of the decision. They have decided they want to tell you the truth about why they pulled away. There is something they have never explained fully. You may have believed the distance was about you, but much of it began inside them. They were facing insecurity, pressure, or an unresolved wound that made closeness feel dangerous. They did not know how to say, "I care about you, but I am afraid of what this is awakening in me." So instead, they became inconsistent. Their silence left you to create explanations, and many of those explanations were painful. You wondered whether you were too much or not enough. You questioned your intuition. You replayed conversations, searching for the moment everything changed. But the truth is that you were not the cause of their internal conflict. You were the mirror that revealed it. Now they want to explain. They want you to know that your value was never the question. Their capacity was the question. They want to admit that they were not prepared for the depth of the connection. They want to tell you that distance did not bring relief in the way they expected. It only delayed the truth. But there is more. The biggest part of their decision has not yet been revealed. Everything you have heard so far is leading toward it. Their acceptance of their feelings, their refusal to listen to outside voices, their desire to speak honestly, these are only pieces of a greater choice. The greater choice concerns the future. They have been thinking beyond a message. Beyond a temporary reconnection. Beyond a brief emotional exchange. They have begun to consider what it would mean to make space for you in their actual life. Not only in private thoughts. Not only in hidden feelings. In their plans, priorities, and daily reality. This frightened them at first because imagining a future made the connection undeniable. It forced them to see that you are not someone they can casually place in the background. They began to picture conversations that continue beyond one night. They imagined repairing trust slowly. They imagined learning your heart again. They imagined becoming the person who no longer disappears when emotions become deep. Stay until the end, because the final moment of this part carries the sign you have been waiting for. Their decision was confirmed when they experienced a sudden inner certainty. It may have happened during prayer, during sleep, during a quiet drive, or in the stillness after an emotional conversation. For a few seconds, all the noise disappeared. They did not hear fear. They did not hear opinions. They did not hear the past. They felt only one clear truth: if they do nothing, they will regret it. That truth settled heavily in their spirit. They understood that waiting for perfect confidence would mean waiting forever. Courage was not going to arrive before the action. Courage would be created through the action. So they made a private decision that no one else knows yet. They decided they are going to move toward you. But before your heart races, listen carefully. The way they plan to move toward you is connected to something they discovered about your current life. They have recently learned or sensed that a change is happening around you. They believe you may be entering a new chapter, becoming less emotionally available to the past, or attracting new attention. This has made their decision more urgent. They know they cannot approach you carelessly. They know they may have one meaningful opportunity to show that they are serious. They have been thinking about the exact words, the timing, and the truth they must finally reveal. They want to ask for something, but it is not what you expect. It is not simply forgiveness. It is not simply another chance. It is something more specific, something that could redefine the entire connection. And now heaven is asking you to prepare, not by chasing, not by forcing, and not by abandoning your peace. Prepare by becoming clear about what you need. Prepare by remembering that love must meet you in honesty. Prepare by refusing to confuse words with transformation. The decision they have made is significant, but your decision will matter too. Because when they finally step forward, they will bring a confession. That confession will explain the real reason they stayed away, the event that changed their mind, and the future they have secretly begun imagining with you. But there is one detail they have not yet found the courage to include. It is the detail that could either open the door between you or close it completely. And just moments ago, they decided they can no longer hide it.